kweli na mimi ni wako njoo. I love you mpenzi wangu, I need you siku zote. I love you. Mpenzi wangu nakupenda nawe unipende, mapenzi ya raha na karaha tupendane. Popote uendapo tutakuwa pamoja, Mungu ametuunganisha mimi na wewe. Nasi wawili tena ni mwili mmoja, wewe ni wangu kweli na mimi ni wako njoo. I love you mpenzi wangu, I need you siku zote. I love you. Mungu ametuunganisha mimi na wewe, nasi wawili tena ni mwili mmoja, wewe ni wangu kweli na mimi ni wako njoo. I love you mpenzi wangu, I need you siku zote.
From Lwanga Communications Center. Communications creates communion.
that many people who have problems in their marriage, sometimes they seek a civil divorce. And having obtained the decree of divorce in the civil courts, they approach the marriage tribunal thinking that as they have received already the divorce decree from the civil law, they are also automatically going to get the same in the Catholic Church, which is not true at all and at all. And I will be explaining this. Why? The canon law in canon 1055 inatueleza ndoa ni nini. And I'm going to read what the canon law says. It says, the matrimonial covenant by which a man and a woman establish between themselves a partnership of their whole life, and which is ordered by its nature to the good of the spouses and the procreation and education of children, has been raised by Christ the Lord the dignity of a sacrament between the baptized. Inamaanisha kwamba hao wawili, mume na mke, wanapokuja mbele ya altari ya Kristo ili kuweza kuunganishwa, wanatengeneza agano. Ni agano kati ya mume na mke ambalo linawajalia kuweza kuishi maisha yao pamoja milele, na vile vile kwa mapenzi na majaliwa ya Mungu kuweza kuwapata watoto na kuwalea na wao kuishi vema pamoja. This is what marriage is all about. It's a partnership of the whole life. And this partnership of whole life is ordered by its nature, first of all, to the good of the spouses, because when they come together, man and woman, there are no children yet. So it is for the good of the spouses, for the man and for the woman. But it's also ordered to procreation, and not only procreation, but also education, raising of these children together. And so one man, one woman coming together for a partnership of all their life, ordered towards, first of all, their own good, then secondly, procreation and education of their offspring. Now, the canon goes on and says, for this reason, a valid matrimonial contract cannot exist between baptized persons without by the same fact being a sacrament. So you understand that Christ the Lord has raised what was first of all natural. First of all, matrimony is a natural fact that a man and a woman come together. But when the two are baptized, this natural fact is raised to a higher level that it becomes a sacrament. And that is why, becoming a sacrament, the commitment between the man and the wife is a covenant that once celebrated validly can never be broken by anyone. So what happens when we see that you go to a civil court, the civil court grants you a divorce? When you come to the Catholic Church, what do we look at? Based on the description we just given sahizi, ni kwamba sakramenti hii kisha funganishwa, hakuna mwanadamu yeyote aliye na uwezo kuweza kuivunja. Kwa sababu hiyo, inapokuja kwetu, we don't look at what happens after the celebration. We look at what happened before and during the celebration. Are there any reasons that we can say what happened before and during the sacrament, the celebration did not constitute a sacrament? Kwamba yale yaliyotendeka kabla na wakati wa kufunga ndoa, tuweza kupata sababu yoyote ambayo tuweza kusema kwamba hii sakramenti haikuwepo. Na hayo ndio mambo nitakuwa nazungumzia leo. Nitakuwa nazungumzia mambo kwamba kusema ni mambo gani ambayo yanaweza kuangaliwa wakati nakuja kwenye koti ya kanisa, ya kusema kwamba kweli hawa watu wawili ndio walienda kanisani, they went to church, they appeared before a minister of the church, everybody in the church was convinced that they celebrated matrimony, and yet when they came out, the sacrament had not been established because we had impediments, because we had things that prevented it from becoming a sacrament. So this is specifically what we are going to talk about. And so if you look at if you look at the sharing I'm giving to you, on the grounds that I'm going to explain today, there may be reasons as to why watu wawili mume na mke wamekuja kanisani kufunga ndoa, lakini walitoka kanisani na hiyo sakramenti haikuwa. The canon law names specifically about 22 grounds ambazo zikija kwetu sisi tunaangalia. The first ground is insufficient use of reason. Elewa kwamba tumesema sakramenti hii ni kati ya mume na mke ambao wanatengeneza agano la milele, a covenant of partnership. This requires that the two of them have enough use of reason. So a marriage is actually, you enter marriage validly when a person has a degree of reasoning ability which is sufficient to know and to understand what marriage is all about. Mtu anayeingia katika ndoa, anaenda kufunga ndoa na hajaelewa ni nini ambacho anafanya leo, huyo hawezi kuweka sakramenti ya ndoa, cannot constitute a sacrament. And there may be some serious conditions, such as profound mental retardation, somebody who is mentally unstable, somebody who is not certain about his personality, he has some kind of disorders. There are some guys who have problems that come from alcoholic intoxication. But what we are saying is, this specific condition must be present at the moment of celebration. So much so that this person at the moment of saying I do does not have sufficient reason, is not able to constitute what he or she is saying. And so when these cases come to us in the tribunal, we have a set of questions. As you can see on the screen, I've given you some of the questions that we can be able to know whether we're establishing this ground or not. Did either you or your former spouse abuse drugs or alcohol to the extent of suffering from blackout periods? Because if somebody suffers from blackout periods, we have also to look at the moment of celebration. Was this person in his mind, in her mind, or it's one of these seizures at that moment that the person didn't even understand what they were doing? That is about use of reason. That is one of the grounds that we may look at. So when it comes to us, remember, in Canon 1060, sheria za kanisa inasema kwamba marriage enjoys the favor of law. So when there are doubts, validity is retained. Just like in civil law, when you go to court, they tell you you are innocent until proven guilty. In canon law, we say when two people or one come towards the tribunal, marriage enjoys the favor of law. That is where I start off as my office to defend that this marriage was valid until the couple or whoever is putting the petition is able to prove me otherwise. And so, even in this, we're asking, were these people in their mind? It is up to the one who has brought the petition to the tribunal to be able to prove beyond any reasonable doubt to us that this was the case when they were entering into this marriage. Another one is a grave lack of discretion of judgment. When you read Canon 1095, 1095 will explain to you that the following are incapable of contracting marriage. Watu wafuatao hawana uwezo wa kuweza kufunga ndoa. I've already talked about those who lack the sufficient use of reason, or those who suffer from a grave defect of discretion of judgment concerning the essential matrimonial rights and duties mutually to be handed over and accepted. Now, when a covenant happens between a man and a woman, there are also some rights. There are also some areas where the two obligations of marriage that the two are going to share. If somebody is not able to make up this judgment, for example, if somebody enters into marriage and is not even able to understand that marriage involves that there will be a sexual relationship, marriage involves that there should be an openness to procreation, marriage involves that the children who have been procreated will be brought up, this person lacks a discretion of judgment. And if it is grave, the discretion is grave, so much so that the person is going into marriage without being able to understand these basics of what marriage is all about, that person is not contracting a valid marriage. But at the same time, as I've said again, the burden of proof is not on us. The burden of proof is on the petitioner, is the one who is presenting it. So we are going to look at all these cases and we are going to ask some of these questions. Did either you or your spouse have extremely little or no dating experience? We start from dating. By the way, whenever a case comes to us, we have a questionnaire. This questionnaire is to help us be able to collect data. Part of it is about the dating experience before becoming engaged. Were either of you on the rebound from a broken engagement or previous marriage when you decided to enter into this marriage? These are very serious things to look at. A lady or a young man was dating another. This young man is dating a lady is dating another young man, and then there is a breakage that from this relationship. As a rebound, she rebounds back to the first guy or the first lady they get, and they say, what happened to me before cannot happen again. Let me go into marriage. And this person rushes immediately into the sacrament of matrimony without having made any discretion in their judgment. These are some of the things we look at. Was this person fully informed about the responsibilities about marriage? Was this person fully informed of what they're going in? That is another possible ground of declaration of nullity. Then another one, number three, is the incapacity to assume the essential obligations of marriage. What does this mean? Ili kuingia katika ndoa iliyo halali, ni lazima mtu aweze kuelewa kwamba maisha ninayoyaingia ndani nitaweza kuyaishi. An ability to take on and to live out the lifetime obligations of marriage. Because you cannot consent to something that's beyond your psychological capacity to fulfill. When you're entering into marriage, you are telling me that I have the capacity, I've thought about this, and I know that I am ready and I'm able to face also the obligations towards this. We've had situations where people marry for other motives. Even as we go ahead, we shall be discussing all this. But the issue here is, when we are saying the yes, am I saying yes to the obligations about this marriage? Do I know them, first of all? Having known them, do I have the capacity to be able to follow them up? So the proof of the condition must be provided when it comes to us. But the tribunal will require also a current evaluation of mental health from a professional. When this comes, you can understand how serious it is when these cases come before us. When somebody says, I didn't have the capacity to assume the essential obligations of marriage, you are telling the tribunal that there was something wrong with their psychological orientation. And because of this, we want sometimes to have an evaluation from a psychiatrist to be able to understand the condition of this person, whether this person really had the incapacity to be able to fulfill these obligations of marriage. Another one is ignorance of the nature of marriage. If one is fully ignorant, a person has no basic knowledge, that is ignorant of what marriage is all about, that necessary knowledge is missing for that person, cannot be able to take up a permanent partnership, be it of the man, be it the woman. Kwa sababu hiyo, tunasema kwamba ni vema zaidi wanaokusudia kufunga ndoa, na hapa pia nawaambia ndugu zangu mapadri ambao sisi ndio mashahidi rasmi wa kanisa na mashemasi, tunapopata couples ambao wako tayari kufunga ndoa, ni vema zaidi kuwapitishia mafundisho haya. Ni vema zaidi kuhakikisha kwamba kabla hujawafunganisha watu wa hawa wawili ndoa, wamepitia mafundisho ya kuweza kuelewa vema zaidi, kwa sababu shida zozote zinazotokana na sakramenti, kwamba the sacrament is not valid, there's a problem about it, the first person who will be contacted is the father in church, is the proper pastor. Actually, we recommend that you become the advocate of the petitioner, that you are able to help draw up the history of this petitioner before it comes up to the tribunal. So you understand the responsibility we have to be able to form our people, to form the couple before they follow up this way of marriage, which is a very, very, very serious and important sacrament. Number 5, one of the other grounds that we look at when it comes to the marriage tribunal is ignorance about the sexual nature of marriage. This is very well explained already from reality, because sometimes you understand that it's not easy. It's not easy for one to go into marriage without understanding that marriage has something to do with sex. We've had situations whereby people are getting married for the sake of documentation. They come before the church and they are coming because somebody says, yes, I do to this one, because they're after documentation. Now, I have to tell you one thing. When we are talking about ignorance of the sexual nature of marriage, we are referring to one of the essential elements that validate the marriage. Because you understand that a marriage can either be contracted. If it is not consummated yet, that marriage has one element that is missing. Because a marriage is only ratified at the altar. But the first sexual act of consummation makes this marriage unbreakable. The validity is fully consummated, is fully established that it cannot be broken. But even as talking about this issue of ratification and consummation, there is a very important aspect I want to touch today. I want to read the canon, what it says. A valid marriage between the baptized is called ratum tantum, that is ratified, if it has not been consummated. It is called ratum et consummatum, that is ratified and consummated if the spouses have performed between themselves a human fashion, in a human fashion, a conjugal act. What are we saying here? That after the celebration of the sacrament of matrimony, the validity has been established before the altar. But if this marriage is not consummated, if it is not going to have the first sexual act between the spouse, the man and his wife, it is not yet consummated. Such a marriage, if it came before the tribunal and there is proof that they never consummated their marriage, this marriage can be declared null by the Holy Father. He has the powers to do that. That is a marriage that is ratified but not consummated. But once it is ratified and consummated, it can never be broken by any human power. The consummation must be in a human fashion. That's what the law says. What is a human fashion? A human fashion means if a spouse today celebrated the sacrament of matrimony and their first conjugal act, which is supposed to be an act of consummation, is done, for example, by use of artificial means, use of, for example, use of condoms, it is not in a human fashion. That sacrament has not been consummated. The marriage has not been consummated. It remains ratified but not consummated. It must be in a human fashion. The human fashion involves, for the sake of the man, it involves that there must be an erection, there must be a penetration, and there must be an ejaculation. These are 3 factors that are looked at in a human fashion. For the woman, there must be the possibility to receive the erection and the ejaculation. And the canon goes on to say, the conjugal act should be suitable in itself for the procreation of offspring. It should be suitable in itself for the procreation of offspring. Once this has been done, this marriage is ratified and consummated, and for that purpose, no human person has any powers to be able to pull it out. So that's what we are talking. If somebody lacks then the ignorance about this basic sexual nature of marriage, that person invalidates the marriage. Number 6, as a ground, we have the error of a person. To enter a valid marriage, one must know the person he or she is marrying. We've had the issue, the basic biblical quotation of Jacob when he went and was to marry Rachel and ended up marrying Leah. I want to use this as an example, although it doesn't fit perfectly. If, for example, when Jacob went and was intending to marry Rachel, the parents of Rachel confused Leah to be Rachel, and Jacob ended up marrying Leah, thinking that it was Rachel. This is an error of a person. It means somebody has made a substantial error in judgment concerning the true identity of the person he or she intends to marry. This one already invalidates the marriage. It's already a ground for declaring the marriage null and void. That means the marriage never ever existed. But there is also an error about the quality of a person. These are two things. Remember, the error of person is you are marrying the wrong person because you didn't know the person. Now, this one is about a quality of that person. And the quality of the person is, for one to enter valid marriage, one must know the essential qualities of the person or she is marrying. So that if at the time of marriage, one spouse was mistaken about a quality that is directly and principally intended, you know, you're looking for, let me take for example, somebody says, the kind of man I want to marry must never have any criminal record. And this is fundamental for me. The kind of woman I want to marry must never have had any criminal record. This is a quality of a person. And you get to marry this person knowing that this person is the right person because it does not have any criminal record. Only after you've married the person, you come to discover that the guy was always a friend of Shimolatewa, something that you didn't know. And by the moment you come to know this, your reaction is so heavy that this is the quality that made me marry this person. I married this person because it doesn't have any criminal record, only to discover that he has. You understand that this is a very principal condition that moved you to marrying this person. If that is able to be proved before the marriage tribunal, then we can also be able to look at that as a ground of declaring the marriage null and void. The other one is error concerning the unity of marriage. Marriage has essential properties, and the essential properties are unity and indissolubility. Unity maana yake ni nini? Mume mmoja na mke mmoja maisha yao yote. Indissolubility, of course, nishasema maisha yao yote, kwamba wakishaunganishwa wote wawili hawa, mmoja na mume mmoja na mke mmoja, wataishi maisha yao yote pamoja. So this can never be dissolved. So if somebody has an error about the unity of marriage, a guy goes into marriage and says, you know what, I think even after getting married, I'll continue with the other lady. Or I have a possibility of marrying another wife, you know. Actually, in civil law, I can be able to do that. So polygamy is a possibility, or the lady thinks of polyandry is a possibility before they are going into marriage, and carries these ideas into the celebration of the sacrament, thinking that even as I'm celebrating the sacrament now, I have a possibility of going on with another lady. So it's not about me and this woman alone. It's not about me and this man alone. I'm keeping my boyfriend. I'm going to keep my girlfriend even as I'm going into this marriage. And so carries these ideas directly into the celebration of the sacrament. Even when they're saying I do, they are still saying I do, but I have the possibility. That is an error concerning the unity of marriage. And so that again can be a ground for declaring the marriage null and void. Of course, number 10 is what I've already explained, also an error concerning the indissolubility of marriage, because marriage, once celebrated, can never be dissolved if it is ratified and consummated. The other thing again is error concerning the sacramental dignity of marriage. I've already said that marriage is a natural reality, but I said for the baptized, Christ transformed this, gave it another power, a transcendence, that it became a sacrament. If somebody goes into a marriage and all they understand is civil marriage, is customary marriage, and believes even what I'm celebrating now is the same as civil marriage, is the same as customary marriage, actually has never attended any lessons to understand the difference. So things, what I can be able to do before the Attorney General, what I can be able to do before the Register of Marriages in civil law is the same thing I'm also doing in this. That person has no knowledge, has a big error about the sacramental dignity of the marriage. If this can be proved before the tribunal, I'm assuring you that this can also become a ground for declaration of marriage. Ground number 12 is total simulation. What is total simulation? We always believe that what we say confirms what we think or what we intend. So when somebody comes to celebrate matrimony, we believe that what they're saying externally is also corresponding what they're intending internally. If there is no correspondence between what I'm saying now and what I'm intending inside, when I say nakuchukua wewe kuwa mme wangu, tena naahidi kuwa mwaminifu kwako, that's the words I'm saying, but internally I'm saying wewe si mme wangu, I'll not be faithful to you. You see, there is no correspondence between what we are saying and what we are intending internally. This is simulating a marriage, making it appear before everybody that you are celebrating a marriage, which internally you know clearly that you're not celebrating this. So this can happen when sometimes in situations where there is an arranged marriage, where parents arrange a marriage for a lady, or a young man is coerced into a marriage for any other reasons, which is pre-arranged for him or her. And this person says, yes, I'll please you. I'll please all of you who are present. But know what? I'm not intending to marry this person. And what I'm going to say is not what I mean. This one is total simulation. So somebody will have to come up with proofs for this. I'm telling you, sometimes it's not very easy for these things to be proved before marriage tribunal. And this is the basic reason why I keep on insisting again and again that it's important that the couple go through a thorough pre-matrimonial instruction, that they come to understand all these conditions we're talking about, that they come to understand that the sacrament of marriage is life lived forever. And as per the sacrament, once it occurs, it's like a child who has been born. This child, whether the parents feed him or they don't feed him, whether they clothe him or they don't clothe him, he remains a human person. And so the covenant that gets established in marriage, if it is validly celebrated, is a sacrament. And that sacrament, no human power can be able to supply for it. It stands and remains until God does apart the spouse. Another now, number 13, is the intention against the good of permanence. So a valid marriage includes 3 essential goods: children, fidelity, and permanence. Ili kuwe na ndoa kamilifu, ni lazima ina mambo matatu muhimu zaidi. Inashughulikia watoto, uaminifu, na kukaa pamoja milele. So if one of both of the spouses enter this marriage, excluding the lifelong permanence of marriage, anasema kwamba naingia ndio katika ndoa ikiwa mambo yataenda vizuri. Ikiwa shida yote itatokea, mimi nitatoka. Haya ni mawazo ambayo anayefunga ndoa anayo kabla ya kufunga ndoa, ama wakati anapoingia katika ndoa. Inakuwa ni vigumu sana. Inakuwa kwamba ndoa hiyo tayari imeshawekwa vikwazo. And if somebody is not thinking about the permanence of this marriage, nitakupenda na kukuheshimu siku zote za maisha yangu. That's what is said. Siku zote za maisha yangu means we are entering into a permanent covenant. Another one is simply the intention against the good of children. Nafunga ndoa, kama zile nilisema zingine za makaratasi, nafunga ndoa, lakini mimi mambo ya watoto sitaki. Mambo ya watoto sitaki mimi, hayapo katika ndoa yetu. Tunapofunga ndoa, tutafunga ndoa ndio, mimi nitaishi nawe vizuri sana, lakini tafadhali mambo ya watoto hayapo. Even we are going to do a permanent contraceptive to make sure that there are no children, and this is an intention that is carried before and during the celebration. The marriage is not valid, because remember when I said what I said in the beginning, this permanence, this coming together in a covenant between the spouse for their partnership has three things: the good of the spouse, procreation of children, and their education. So when there is a condition already, an intention against the good of the children, it doesn't work. Intention against the good of fidelity, kwamba mimi naingia katika ndoa lakini nasema kwamba ndoa hii mimi sitakuwa mwaminifu tayari, labda na mwenzangu tayari ambaye nampenda, na huyu nimpendaye huyu sasa ni siku hizi wanaita mpango wa kando. Nina mpango wa kando hata kabla ya ndoa, lakini nasema nini? Naingia katika ndoa lakini mpango wangu wa kando mimi siuachi. Mpango wa kando nitaendelea kutembea nao tu, siuachi kabisa. So unaoa huyu, unasema ndio nakuoa, lakini internally you are saying I'm marrying you but na keep mpango wangu wa kando. That is going against the good of fidelity. That alone, it invalidates the marriage. Now, it has to happen this way. I want this to be very clear, that the tribunal and the value of the sacrament is looked at before and during, not after. What happens that really this man or this woman intends to marry this guy and remain faithful to this guy, but after they have married, within maisha yao, an act of infidelity happens. Does that invalidate marriage? No. It can only invalidate marriage if it existed before and during. That this relationship was there before, and the person keeps it even during, promising that I go into this, but I'm leaving space for that. Or there wasn't no relationship at all, but the person kept for him or herself the right to become unfaithful even during the celebration. That one becomes a condition. That one invalidates the marriage. We have another one we are calling a future condition. You're getting married to somebody on a future condition. If this will happen, then I will have married you. You understand that the future cannot define the present when it comes to the sacrament. The sacrament is you willing this person hic et nunc, here and now. This is the person I'm marrying. As the person is, as the person is understood, as the person is known to me, this is the person I'm marrying now. It's not a marriage that is awaiting a condition to happen so that now you can be able to say, I'm married to this person. We can also have another condition which is in the past. To enter into a valid marriage, a person must give free and unconditional consent. So a past condition concerns the existence or non-existence of a fact. So you are based on a past condition, and you say this person, for me to marry you as I'm marrying you now, internally, if only what happened last year doesn't happen tomorrow. That is a condition in the past. You're conditioning that marriage, and so the validity doesn't come. That marriage can be proved before the tribunal to have been null and void. I want us all to understand one fact, that the marriage tribunal does not nullify marriages. It never nullifies any marriage. The marriage tribunal in the church only declares that the marriage was null and void from the very beginning. And another thing, there is a principle where some believe that every failed marriage is null. It's not true. It's not true. Because conditions that come up after marriage has been celebrated may, yes, form a basis for us to consider the possibility of that marriage having been null and void, if only what is happening now happened before and during marriage, and then it's continuing now. That can happen. But if it is something that has come up after the celebration of marriage, like life is not able, we're not able to live any longer in harmony, we're no longer in love, but this is happening before. You say, wow, nilimpenda kweli, hata nikiingia katika ndoa alikuwa Mungu wangu huyu. But after that, now you say, vile tumeishi sasa naona hanipendi tena. Those are conditions that have come after. And so they don't invalidate marriage. Force or fear, somebody goes into marriage because this is the only way out. You have been forced, somebody wanted to kill you, or you've been forced and you discover that this is the only way I can be able to get out of it, but you are under force or you are under fear. That cannot be a valid marriage. It requires a free, personal consent where you've chosen this specific person and this person has chosen you, and you are free to marry this person at your own decision. So if it is under force or under fear, that is exactly the reason why when we go before the priest or the deacon, the ministers of the sacrament, they will ask us this. The official witnesses of the church, they are going to ask us this. Mmefika mbele ya kanisa, mbele ya mhudumu wa kanisa, bila shurti, kwa hiari. Are you free to make this exchange? Are you free to be able to share what you're sharing now? That is what they ask. And because of that, we are eliminating this possibility of fear or force. Another one is very specific, a reverential fear. That is the choice to enter marriage must be made knowingly and freely. Otherwise, that marriage is invalid. And if one of or both of the spouses chose to enter the marriage principally because of a grave fear of displeasing another person who has an important authority, what we are saying is reverential fear is about huyu msichana anasema staki kuwakasirisha wazazi wangu. I have respect, I have fear for my parents, and so I'm marrying this person not because I want it, but because I want to please my parents, because I want to please somebody who has an authority over me. So it is a reverential fear, a fear that respects somebody more important. And so you're marrying, you're entering into a marriage with somebody just because you want to please either parent or either guardian or somebody who has a responsibility over you. And the final one now is what we are calling the invalid convalidation. What is this invalid convalidation? That is when a Catholic couple or a person who is Catholic seeks to have an invalid marriage recognized by the church, it is accompanied only through a new marriage within the same church. What are we saying? Apart from what we call the convalidation, what is referred to most of the time as senatio in radice, which is a very different condition, we are talking about an invalid convalidation. It means we have been able to establish that this marriage here is invalid. The couple, if they want to get back together as married people, they have to re-solemnize. They have to express afresh their consent for this marriage. They have to marry again, either with the same person or with a different person within the church. They have to follow again a new canonical form. They have again to express their desire for one another before the minister of the church and before the two witnesses. If this happens, then we know that again, the marriage has become again valid. It has been convalidated. So you see, my friends, my dear Christians, all our listeners, what we are talking about is tunapoenda mbele ya koti ya kanisa, tusidhani kwamba kwa sababu tayari mtu ameshaenda mbele ya serikali na akapewa divorce, that person automatically will come before the marriage tribunal and get what they call again, hata mimi naenda kupata divorce kutoka kanisani. There is no divorce completely in the church. When you come to the marriage tribunal, you are requesting the marriage tribunal to consider your case. Try to see from the grounds and the history given to us whether there is a reason which is going to give us a moral certitude to believe that your marriage never ever existed. You came to church, you came out of the church without the sacrament. The marriage tribunal can be able to do this, and once this has been proved, the judge will give you a positive sentence declaring that your marriage is null and void because it never ever existed. So I think it was important for me to be able to bring you out these things that happen at the marriage tribunal, so that those who are among us who are priests, at least you can be able to help your faithful, because you are the first advocates of your faithful when they come to you as a petitioner, one who wants his case or her case to be considered by the tribunal. You are the first advocate. You are the person who's going to guide this person through the whole process. And so it's important to understand that you can correct this person on the ground. You can even look at the case and already you understand that this case, for sure, does not have the merit of going to the marriage tribunal, because the person thinks that every failed marriage is invalid, which is not true. So I think I'm throwing it into a plenary from the explanation we've been able to give. If there are any questions that we want more clarification, if there are even specific cases that you like me to respond to, I think I'm leaving it out now to Bosco to be able to direct this session that is our plenary session. Yes. Thank you. Modime, your question is a good question. If you are married, what I didn't understand is whether you are married to a Catholic or you're married to a traditionalist. But I'm going to
You're married
to
to a Catholic.
Okay, so the two of you are Catholics, married in the Catholic Church. And then from there, the family where you're married, you are asked to follow up some traditional things, which may be related to the sacrament of matrimony or may be related to the issue of your faith. When you get married as a Catholic, you have the sacrament of matrimony. First of all, it unites you and your husband. This also calls you to be able to become a witness of your faith. This is something basic, even for those who are not married. You understand that whatever is cultural that goes against your faith, you have to resist it as a Catholic, whether you are married or you're not married. So I think it is a question of maintaining your faith, your Catholic faith, and being able to respond to this faith, even amidst the cultures where we live. We have to learn to Christianize our cultures, those that are actually going against our own Christian faith. I think that's how I would look at it. Pardon me, I didn't get it. Okay. That one I have it. I have it on my screen. I can answer that. So can I respond to these three questions kindly? Divorce and marriage and communion. Once you get a divorce, that is when you talk about divorce, I'm sure you know that we are talking about a civil divorce, because there's no divorce in the Catholic Church. When you have received a decree of divorce, that means now you are separated, you and your husband, you are living apart. Both of you, even though you have divorced, your sacrament still remains intact. You cannot get married to somebody else. So during the period of divorce, the civil divorce has been granted and you are living, your husband lives by alone and you are living by alone. If you're not having any other sexual relationship with other people, you are free to go for communion, because your sacrament of matrimony still stands until that day when the marriage tribunal will look at it and say there must have been a reason of declaring it null and void. So you have no obstacle at all to receive the sacrament of communion. Number 2 is about you get married and you are not able to sire a kid. There are 2 things involved here. We talk about infertility or sterility, and we talk about impotence. Impotence and sterility are 2 different things. One is sterile when, though functional, they are not able to sire a kid. Sterility does not invalidate marriage, because the man is able to perform, but he has not enough sperms to be able to sire a kid. Or the woman is able to receive, but she has a problem with her conception. That is sterility, does not invalidate marriage. Impotence instead invalidates marriage. Impotence means the man is not functional. It's like you're talking of one who wants to become a soldier, wants to fire, does not have the bullets. So if the man is impotent, impotence invalidates the marriage. If the woman is suffering, for example, from what we call vaginismus, that means she's not able to perform sexual acts, she's not able to receive, she doesn't have the tools for marriage. That means that person is impotent. And so impotence invalidates marriage, but not sterility. So if you're not only able to sire a kid, kids come from God, they're gifts from God, but you must be responsibly open to receive them. If God grants, thanks to him. If he doesn't grant, thanks to him again. So that is about impotence. So siring a child, if you don't sire a child, does not invalidate a marriage. Question number 3, which comes from Steve, he says, I want to enter into a marriage with a lady who is not a Catholic. My attempts to bring her back to Catholic Church has been hard. What should I do since she has declared to remain in a church and myself in my Catholic faith? Thank you very much, Stephen. This is a very question that many people are asking. The canon law provides a possibility of what we call a mixed marriage. The mixed marriage is between a Catholic and a non-Catholic. This one requires that approach your priest. First of all, share it with your lady. If the 2 of you agree that she marries you and she remains a member of her church, and you remain a member of the Catholic Church, you can celebrate the marriage in whichever church, either the Catholic Church or her church. It's a mixed marriage. What you only need is you need a dispensation from the bishop. That is the work of your parish priest to help you to get this permission to be able to do this. If you're marrying in the church of the lady, then your parish priest will have to be present, even though he is not the official witness that time. He's not the one who is going to officiate over your marriage. It is the pastor of that church, but your parish priest must be present in that church as the official witness of the church during the celebration. I think those are, I think I've responded to those 3 questions.
Sorry. Good evening, Father.
Good evening to you.
Very informative interaction. One question: you married up actually validates a mistress after 2 years, and you were married in the Catholic Church.
I can't get you. You're not audible.
You can't hear me? Yeah, okay. As I was saying, can you hear me now better?
Yes.
With the new laws coming in effect with the new Marriage Act, and if a Catholic couple have been married, and then the guy decides after 2 years that he's going to turn his mistress, maybe the mistress came into the marriage during the marriage, but then now he turns the mistress into a civil law wife. What happens to the first wife who's a Catholic? Can you invalidate that marriage?
Thank you. First of all, as I said, the Catholic Church cannot invalidate any valid marriage. It can only declare that a marriage was valid, was null and void from the very beginning. From the situation you are telling me is, these two people have been living up together. Now the new dispensations in the reforms we are having in the civil law, which are allowing now more than one wife, are coming up. This is something coming up after the marriage was already celebrated. So what happens is, for the Catholic party who is now moving in and taking the mistress, they are actually putting an impediment to their own marriage. First of all, that marriage can never be celebrated in the Catholic Church. That's why that person will go to the civil law to be able to celebrate that. And from the moment they go to the civil law to celebrate that, they stop receiving communion. Because what means is they have gone against the partnership of whole life, which they put up. If the lady, the first lady, has no impediment completely to continue receiving the sacraments, the other guy is only in one sacrament of marriage. They are not two, because the mistress is not married in the Catholic Church and so does not have a sacrament with her. And the church cannot invalidate this unless the ground of error, of infidelity, was there before. That this man, even when was marrying the first wife, had left room for himself to be able to marry somebody else in the decision he was making. Then now that case can come before us and we can be able to see whether we're able to establish that error.
Yes. I'm asking for somebody.
Yes, Aurelia.
Yes, Father, is it good maybe for one to make love before getting married? You see, to avoid the problems of impotence and maybe like to know whether your partner will be able to satisfy you. Is it okay to do that experiment before you get married?
Okay. That's a very, very, very good and tricky question. The first thing is, you understand that sex before marriage is already a sin. Secondly, there are two things here. Impotence and satisfaction are two different things completely. Impotence simply means that this man is not able. That means he cannot have an erection. It means he cannot be able completely. When it comes to satisfaction, that is about the art of lovemaking. That is another topic completely different. And so we cannot, the church will not allow you to commit a sinful act in order to prepare for yourself for a sacrament. So it is not completely allowed.
Good evening, Father Kizito and Father Bosco.
Good evening.
Thank you so much, Father Kizito. That was really inspiring topic.
Thank you, ma'am.
And still, there's quite a lot still in our minds of asking if we are right or not. And one of it that we've come across is when you are married, you're a Catholic and you're marrying a non-Catholic, means a Christian. And they always give you confidence that it is quite okay you practicing your faith until the time you get married. And thereafter, it changes. And that's where the problems all begin, that from that side, that no, you're supposed to follow my faith and not yours. So from the very onset, it becomes a problem, even with children, because of course, as Africans, the wife is supposed to follow the other one. But you see, the agreement was not so before marriage. So many of the couples are actually having that kind of a problem, and many have given in only later on to find out at the end they leave one another, because it cannot be sustainable if you are really faithful to your faith, and then suddenly because of marriage. So what happens here, Father?
Okay. This is, Mom, I'm very happy for that question. It's a very, very, very crucial question. Actually, one thing I didn't mention is when we are having a mixed marriage, when you have mixed marriage, before the bishop grants the dispensation, there is a declaration that the Catholic party has to make that states this way, that marrying this party who is not a Catholic, I who is Catholic, I promise to make sure that I maintain my faith and do anything possible that my faith is not corrupted. Number two is that the children whom we are going to get out of this marriage will be baptized and raised in the Catholic faith. These conditions have to be made and signed by the Catholic party with the knowledge of the non-Catholic party. That is point number one. Once these have been presented, the Archbishop gives this dispensation from that impediment of mixed marriage, the couple can be able to marry. Now, what happens after, as you are saying, you know, we believe that when people say things, they mean it. What happens is the church will tell you, you as the Catholic party, you will have to remain faithful to your faith. You'll have to live by an example of faith, which may be also a point of conversion for the non-Catholic, because this that happened before the church was in the foreknowledge of the non-Catholic party, even though the promises were made by the Catholic party. But above all, for me to be able to respond to this question of yours, above all, these people will have to go through a pre-matrimonial instruction. What we are saying is our Catholic faithful must also learn to listen to their priests during the moment of formation. There may be moments when the father who is forming you tells you, even though now you are blinded by love to this man, I'm foreseeing that there might be changes. We recommend that you understand very well the situation in which we are going. Just like somebody is asking me here whether a Catholic can marry a Muslim, I'm referring to this already because these are some of the things that we have to look at during the pre-matrimonial instructions to make sure that even these people understand what does it mean the Catholic party marrying a non-Catholic and remaining faithful in their own faith. You know, so these are the things that have to be looked at during that period of pre-matrimonial instructions. But I hear you clearly, because this is what is happening in some of the families. Things were promised, things were different before matrimony, but after that they change. They say, I am the man of the house, you have to follow what I say, kids are not going to church. As a Catholic faithful, you'll have to see how you can be able to balance up to be able to remain faithful to the promises you made. There's a question here, Father Bosco. If you allow me, somebody is asking, after now the tribunal has declared that a matrimony is null and void, what happens after that? After we have declared that a matrimony is null and void from the reasons given to us, before now the new Pope has given up a new dispensation. Before, we had to make up our decision from our court and then sent it to another tribunal of second instance, who will also go through the whole case so that if we have the same positive sentence, now that marriage is fully declared null and void. Today, even only from the tribunal of the first instance, it can be done. After that has been done, this sentence is sent to the parishes where the couple comes from. It is annotated in the baptism registry and in the marriage registry, and so they are allowed freely to be able to marry. The sentence, of course, belongs to the couple, to the petitioner. They're going to get their sentence telling them, on this day, your marriage has been declared null and void, and so you are free to marry. And then the same is sent also to the relevant parishes. So that is what follows out after that. Then the second one was, of course, that one of a Muslim marrying a Catholic. They can marry. There's no impediment apart from the impediment of disparity of cult. They have to go to the parish priest, who will have to ask to seek for dispensation from the disparity of cult. That means people of two different cults coming together to marry. But again, my attention goes back to what Mondego has just asked us. How are they going to live together? A Catholic and a Muslim, they have a very big difference of faith. The Catholic party must be ready for what they are going into. But as per law, they can marry. Once they get the dispensation of disparity of cult, they can marry. But now the consequences are those that we're talking about, which will come up during the pre-matrimonial instructions. Yes. Yes. That is an area of bioethics. Children are sired naturally. As I said, children are not a do or die. Children are a gift from God. It's a whole topic that we can handle in bioethics. But from the canonical point of view, I'll tell you immediately that, as the canon said, children are sired in a human mode, a human form. IVF is another scientific way of doing it, which goes beyond the scope, and it can be handled very well. If we want, we can handle a topic on bioethics and we can treat that. Thanks a lot, Father Bosco. And just for our viewers, in case from what we've shared, somebody would want some more explanation, on the screen, I have my telephone number there, 0722, you can see it on the screen, 178-079. You can always contact me. You can find me in Chani. We can have sessions of discussion. And any of those who have also those potential cases we are talking about, know that we are there to be able to serve you. So thank you all for listening to us, and especially for being interactive in what we've just shared today. Now, with a word of prayer and a blessing from God. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the gift of this evening. We thank you for all our Christians, all our listeners this evening, for this great topic you've given us to share. And we ask you to be with us, be with our families, unite them in this partnership of all their lives, those who are in marriage and those who are seeking marriage, that they may find the joy to be able to walk together towards your kingdom. And so that as they share in this great mystery of your love, they may be able to learn from you and so love one another in fidelity. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. And Almighty God bless you all, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Father Bosco.
From Lwanga Communications Center. Communications creates communion.